You see, I spent about a week this past summer with high school students in a leadership camp. And as part of that week, the youth spent an hour each day in silence. For reflection, they were given a set of questions each day to reflect upon, quotes geared towards issues of spiritual growth and clarification. And then they were told, go, find a quiet place, sit alone in silence with these questions, and notice what happens. What? They asked. You want us to spend an hour alone in silence? Can't we at least hang out with our friends? And do we have to be quiet? What if we're not disturbing anyone? Can I swim? Can I sing? Can I listen to my headphones? You'd have thought we were asking them to spend an hour scrubbing the toilet. No, we said. The two rules are you have to be solitary and you have to be silent. Beyond that, choose what you will. The groaning continued as they meandered off and found their places around campus. That was at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, many of them were calling us adults out when we were interrupting the space or time with our conversations. Shh, they'd say. I'm in my quiet time. The youth were then, at the end of each day, invited into small groups where they could share the fruits of their contemplation and reflection. The first night wasn't so productive in terms of deep sharing, but as I got better at facilitating the process and as they got to know each other in my small group, their sharing deepened. And it was the last night that really blew me away. The topic of the day was faith. The questions that were posed to them were, what do I trust? What experiences have taught me to trust? Where do I look for strength and encouragement? How do I celebrate my life and experiences? What do I trust that does not require an explanation? And what has earned my unconditional trust? And why? There were a few quotes that were given to them as well, one from Thoreau talking about going into the woods to live deliberately, one from Václav Havel saying, the farther we go, the more ultimate explanation recedes from us. William Newton Clark, faith is the daring of the soul to go farther than it can see. And Elton Trueblood, faith is not belief without proof, but trust without reservations. That night, that last night, that night of faith, when our small credo group gathered for reflection, she took my breath away. The cheerleader of the group. No, really, she was a cheerleader. Literally. I mean, she had been a figurative cheerleader all week long, encouraging others, cheering them up. She was perky and bouncy and effervescent. Kind of made me cringe sometimes. But tonight, as she reflected, I was stunned. She was the first one to speak, and she captured the attention of the whole group. She started out hesitant and reluctant. I wasn't real sure when I started this, faith and trust, I don't know. So as I sat on the rock out there in the middle of the courtyard and was thinking about this, I started thinking, I'm like, well, what do I really trust that doesn't require an explanation? And then she thought, well, this rock, I guess. I guess I trust that it's going to hold me up. And come to think about it, I guess I trust when I squeeze the toothpaste tube that toothpaste is going to come out of it, not something else. And I guess I trust the toothbrush that I'm squeezing it onto. And I guess I trust the mirror that's going to reflect what and she went on and on until she finally exploded and said, I guess I just trust everything. I have faith in everything. And I didn't say it then, but later, as we reflected together as adult leaders, I said, yes! Not only, and perhaps not even primarily, because I particularly align with the way she was looking at faith, but because here was a young person in liberal religious community, a community that often shies away from the language of faith, that disowns it and says, I'm not going to use that word. It's too often abused. And she said, no, faith is something different. It's something I can have in everything. That was what took my breath away. That, and then the humility of realizing that I never expected it from her. I never even really hoped for it from her. Where was my faith? My trust? Another youth in that same group who was going through quite a bit in her family life shared this poem as part of her reflection time. It's from Tennyson, an excerpt from Ancient Sage. Thou canst not prove the nameless, O my son, nor canst thou prove the world thou movest in. Thou canst not prove that thou art body alone, nor canst thou prove thou art spirit alone. Nor canst thou prove that thou art both in one. Thou canst not prove that thou art immortal, no, nor yet that thou art mortal. Nay, my son, thou canst not prove that I, who speak with thee, am not thyself in converse with thyself. For nothing worth proving can be proven, nor yet disproven. Wherefore be thou wise, cleave ever to the sunnier side of doubt, and cling to faith beyond the forms of faith. She reels not in the storm of warring words. She brightens at the clash of yes and no. She sees the best that glimmers through the worst. She feels the sun is hid but for a night. She spies the summer through the winter bud. She tastes the fruit before the blossom falls. She hears the lark within the songless egg and finds the fountain where they wailed, mirage. Cling to faith beyond the forms of faith. The faith beyond faith. Not what it is necessarily that you believe in, but what's beyond that. And what's your relationship with it? What does it mean? The words I used this morning before the lighting of the candle were gifted to me earlier this week from someone who grew up in this church, who said, "You're kidding me, you don't have these words?" These were read every Sunday, the first Sunday of Advent, or every year, the first Sunday of Advent when I was growing up there.